Hey there, what's up? It's Johnny here, and welcome to another episode of the Three Colors Show. The show is full of photography love, and as always, I'm super excited to be here. And today we're talking about a topic that I've had so many questions from you guys about lately, and that is, what filters should I buy? And today we're going to start with the polarizing filter. The one, the only, the most important filter to have in your kit is the circular polarized filter. And the reason why is you cannot reproduce what a polarized filter will do in post. But hey, well, I've already done an amazing show with Brent Mail not so long ago on the Share, Inspire, Create show, if you haven't checked that out. And I'm going to actually put that content in here. And we cover all the different circular polarized filters, ways you can actually save money buying polarized filters, and also how the best ways to use polarized filters, because if you use them wrong, you get this thing called the blue blob of death, which is basically your sky gets all whacked out and crazy. But don't worry, I even show you how to fix that in Lightroom and Photoshop. So stick around, enjoy the show. I know you're going to love it. And if you are listening on the podcast and you can't visualize exactly what I'm going through with the steps, jump over to threecolors.co/podcast and find this show, which will be show 17, and check out the video there. All right, guys, let's get into it. How about that location in New Zealand when we were there filming? I know you've probably heard us talk about it before, but it was absolutely epic, man.
It was.
Nugget Point, the lighthouse there. You know, the one thing I can remember about that, besides the absolutely epic location and nearly falling to my death, was was walking up and talking to the ranger and getting access to the location right above the lighthouse.
Yeah.
You know, they're just absolutely epic view.
That a lot of people don't do.
I know.
Like going to the source and actually finding out if there is a better way to get a better shot.
Mm-hmm. Local knowledge, man. You can't beat it. And that's a tip. But I tell you what, the one thing I remember too, walking down between the trees, and I had my hand sort of down, and there was that spiky bush, and I pricked myself, and he goes, "Oh yeah, they're spiky. Watch those, yo." And I remember it was like hurting for days, man. I was pulling little prickles out of my fingers, but man, we got out there and just like this breathtaking view. And check out this image we got. You can see Jay's just getting set up there, and I'm behind him just getting set up to film him. And Brent's walked back around the point there, but it gives you a bit of an idea of where we are. You feel like you're on top of the world, mate.
Well, you are, because you take 2 steps to the right, Johnny, and you are going to be at the bottom of the world.
Oh, man. And hey, another thing I remember from that location, which was really funny too, and guys, this is one thing that really excites me about photography, is while you're out there, you're creating all these other memories, man. You know, especially when you're traveling with other creative people. And so one thing I remember is Brent's new 5D Mark III set up on a tripod, and we were filming Jay, you and myself together. And
a little quick tip or something.
Yeah, that's right. And no one was behind the cameraman. And the wind, there was these gusts of wind, and like, man, I swear your tripod was going to go off the edge.
The camera's a little bit, or the whole setup's a little bit top heavy too.
It is.
Because I had a really light tripod
and
with a very heavy camera and a mic on the top, and it was like.
But anyway, so awesome location, epic memories, and I just, oh man, I can't wait to actually, let's get into the Inspire, because I've got an awesome image to show you of that location. It's just absolutely epic, man.
Awesome. Let's jump right into it.
We need that music now, though.
Yeah, Russell, put it in.
Yeah, put that in, Russ. Yeah, love that, man. So anyway, check out this spot, man. Just breathtaking. It's just absolutely amazing, and you'll find out why this ties in a minute. We're going to talk about polarizers today. And obviously, this shot, Brent, I've used a polarizer. And you know how you can tell? The dead giveaway that you could tell that I've used a polarizer in this shot.
See through the water?
Look at that water.
Yeah.
I mean, down the bottom sort of right above that massive watermark that I'm going to have to get rid of because it's a bit too big. It's a big watermark, actually.
It is,
That's another show. But you can actually see through the water there, and you can see the bits of seaweed coming through the water. You can see the discoloration there from the sand after that wave's gone through. You can see that yellow down the bottom there, and that's a dead giveaway. And the intense blue of that water, that's a dead giveaway that I've used a polarizer.
Yeah, totally. Because you can see the difference between my image and yours.
Yeah.
I mean, this is obviously straight off the camera. I haven't done anything to it, and it's the water's dull and like kind of lifeless.
It is, yeah, definitely, man. And you can see the other thing that's a bit of a giveaway too is have a look at those highlights out the back there. Yeah. Okay, so you can see
much more intense.
They are intense, but the highlights have been pulled back out there. You can see, and look at the lighthouse. Okay, so it's still the lighthouse is the brightest thing in this image. And it was at the day too, because when this was shot, the sun just come through a thin layer of cloud. So it was an overcast day. You can't tell here. Okay, it was a slightly overcast day, but the sun did actually come out just for that little bit there. You know, it was still being filtered by cloud from memory, but it was off 90 degrees, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But and you can see the highlights up there, and those rocks right up there. So they've been pulled back, and the polarizer actually does that as well. Okay. So it's pulled some intensity out of those highlights, as well as giving me the edge to look through the water there, which you can see. And it's just made those blues just so much more intense. I just love it. And the other added bonus it does too is when you've got sort of harsh light on greens as well, the polarizer will actually intensify those greens too, man. So there you go. I just love this image. It's one of my favorite images. And you know, we always say, we don't always say, but you always hear photographers say, man, oh, you got to get up early and get that good light and get out in the afternoon.
You don't have to.
Man, you don't have to. I tell you what, there's so many great images. I mean, this is a prime example. This was middle of the day.
Yeah,
you know,
it was.
It was middle of the day, and this is one of my favorite images. I really love this.
Yeah, and, being that far south on the South Island of New Zealand, the sun's pretty far north. Being, autumn or going into winter. Mm-hmm. So even in the middle of the day, the sun, it's not right up above us, shining down. It's kind of to the north, quite off axis a little bit. So the polarizer really works well. It does. So the general rule of thumb, a polarizer, particularly when you're shooting a big wide scene open where you can see sky, or you want to look through sky particularly, when you can see sky and you want to intensify that sky, polarizer works best when the sun is around 90 degrees to the direction you're shooting. Yes.
And it was here. You can see the shadow. So the shadows, just down the end of the lighthouse, follow the leading line out there, you can see the shadows, and the sun is directly 90 degrees.
90 degrees. So that's where you get the most polarization.
That's right. So, yeah, it is. Yeah. And we're going to talk about something called the blue blob of death a bit later. And if you get the polarizer wrong, I mean, it's one of the most important filters to have in your kit, because it's something you just cannot duplicate in post, mate. You need to have it in your kit. It's a must.
Actually, I say it's the only filter you need.
It is. If you didn't own a filter and you wanted to go out and buy your first filter, it's the very first thing you would buy, and probably the only one you could probably get away.
Circular polarizer.
Circular polarizer, yeah, filter. For sure, man. And we'll talk about a couple of different options in a minute. But man. So I just without a polarizer, I would have never created this image. Yes. It never would be as intense and as beautiful as it is. Without a polarizer.
And it's one of the things that you can't do in post processing. You can't actually see through the water. If you can't see through the water, there's nothing you can do in post-processing. So it's the one filter you have to have in the field to capture those amazing images.
Yep, for sure, man. So I just want to show you a couple of types of polarizers. This one here is just a plain old round circular polarizer, and it just screws. I'll hold that up so you can see. And it just screws straight onto the front of your lens, and these come in different sizes. But what I would recommend you doing, guys, the best way to do it is 77 is around, the one that sort of fits all your wider angle lenses.
Yeah. Or at least ours.
Yeah,
that we're using.
Yeah. I mean, if you're on a Micro Four Thirds or a mirrorless system, it may be different for most DSLRs, but around 77. But what I'd recommend you doing is buy the biggest circular polarizer size that you need to fit your biggest lens. Yeah. And instead of buying different ones for either out of the lens that's smaller, just buy a step down ring or a step up ring, whichever way you want it. Yeah. They step up or down, whatever. But anyway, because they're a hell of a lot cheaper. They're worth nothing, and you just screw them on, and then you can just adapt the bigger filter to your different smaller lenses. So then that's how you save yourself a bit of money.
And actually, also, if you're doing a lot of wide angle work, it's good to get a step up ring. So say you've got a small diameter front of your wide angle lens, you step it up so that you actually got a bigger polarizing filter on the front of your wide angle lens. Why do we do that, Johnny?
It's going to stop you from getting vignetting. So when you start to get, obviously this is another, we'll talk about this one in a minute, but when you start to get further away from the front of the lens, obviously your lenses the filter's starting to encroach on the side of your the view of the lens.
And a wide angle lens, it's pretty wide. So basically the wide angle lens, the lens is looking at almost sometimes close to 90 degrees out. I mean, depending on how wide it is. So that's why you need a really big polarizing filter in front of a wide angle lens. So that you actually don't cut it off, get the vignetting.
That's it. Man, do you want to tell us about this style?
Yes, totally. Okay, so what I got here, guys, is a circular polarizer on front of my Lee filter kit. I think this is called the foundation kit, the Lee filter kit, filter holder. So the circular polarizing filters on the front, so I can turn it around and get the maximum polarization that I want out of the water and get the glare out of the water or the sky. And then in the back here, I can actually put my graduated neutral density filters in the back, or my 10-stop filter, which I love, in the back here to get those, those long exposure images. And I can, move my filter up and down, and I can get the polarizing filter to work. So I can stack filters together. So I can have a polarizing filter and another 2 filters before the light actually goes into my lens and I capture it.
Yeah. So there is a couple of options, guys. Like, I know some of these systems, I remember I had another brand, I think it was called Koken, and I didn't have the polarizer. So what I'd actually do is mount my circular polarizer on first and then put the system over top, man.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really matter which way, where you have the polarizer in your filter system. Like, it can go before your NDs or your grads or after. It makes no difference.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, and I know Jay and Verena use another system where the polarizer filter is actually built in first,
yes.
and they can turn it in so it doesn't matter where you really have it when you go with this type of filter system.
Yeah, and I guess it's just the convenience, because I know with them I think it was battling a little bit to turn it from the back.
Yeah,
because it was behind all the other filters, so it wasn't as accessible.
Yeah, that's true.
As easy to get to.
Yep, definitely. So yeah, so that's the different types of filters. Now, there's a few different types of situations where you'd use a polarizer filter, isn't there, buddy? So the number one we've already talked about is cutting the glare off the water and getting to see through that water. I mean, that's a classic example of where you use a polarizer filter. The other one is if you want to really intensify that sky, you know, it'll just bring down the what am I trying to say, bro?
Well, it makes the sky even so much more blue. It's so much more intense. And if you've got some clouds in the sky, the contrast between the light clouds and the dark blue is amazing. When you're using a circular polarizing filter.
Yeah. So another great place to use it is, say you're doing some street photography and you want to look through glass into a cafe, cut the reflection off the glass. You know, that's another place you can use it for another type of photography. Another classic example is if you're in a forest sort of situation and it's like a cloudy day and you've got those harsh little highlights. You don't really notice it, hey, but you've got this harsh highlights all over the greenery. You know, you put that polarizer on and turn that bad boy, man, it just cuts it away and it just changes the dynamic of the image. So just amazingly. So how it works, guys, is wave, and Brent's going to help me with this because he's a bit more technical with this stuff. But basically, wave travels in light, in waves.
Light is a wave.
Light is a wave, yeah. So, and there's like, on the polarizer filter, there's like these different bars that go through. You can't really see it, but and as you turn the polarizer, depending on which way the waves of light are coming at you, the bars will block that part of the wave of light, won't it, mate?
So it absorbs a certain angle of the light, I guess. Okay. So that's why when light reflects off, off the surface of the water, you can actually turn the polarizing filter, and it only absorbs the reflected light off the top of the surface. So that's why you can see in, because you can see the other light, the other angles of light, I guess.
That's it. Perfect, man. So that's pretty much why you need to have a polarizer. Man, go and grab one because they're just essential to have in your kit, and they're just so useful. And nothing, mate. And like we said, you cannot reproduce the effect it creates in post. So it's a must-have, man.
It's a must-have filter.
I carry this little bad boy with me everywhere. So.
Okay, there's one thing where you don't actually need a polarizing filter, and that's when you're photographing portraits.
Okay.
Now, sometimes a polarizing filter can affect the autofocus of your lens, of your camera.
Well, that's something we haven't mentioned too, mate, is compensating with your exposure when you put a polarizer on.
The exposure too, but I'm talking about autofocus. If you're photographing portraits and not landscapes, I've tried it, and polarizing filter is not great when you're photographing portraits.
Okay, that's a good tip.
Or if you're indoors.
Indoors, yeah, of course. Well, it's virtually useless indoors.
Makes it really dark.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So there's really no reflection you need to take off indoors, I don't think, that I've experienced. I remember when I was photographing real estate photography, and you go outside and you got the polarizing filter on and you're shooting because you want the nice dark blue sky, and then you forget to take it off and you walk inside and you're trying to take photos and you got all the flashes on, you're like, wow, they're so dark. Everything's so dark, and you forgot that you left the polarizing filter on the front of your lens.
Yeah, that's it. So that's so funny, man. Yeah, so definitely not indoors, and sounds like definitely not for portraits. That's a great tip, mate. One thing I would say is just remember, when you do put the polarizer on, it is going to cut back the light, so you will have to adjust your exposure when you put it on.
Yes.
So, I mean, to be honest, before I had any ND filters, Brent, this is a little tip too. I would screw the polarizer on, and it just cuts away just a touch of light, and you get those slightly longer exposures.
Yes.
You just got to make sure that when you've got it turned the right direction, so you're not getting the big blue blobs of
totally. And you also get there's something called a variable ND filter. Where you can actually vary the light that it cuts out, which is basically actually 2 polarizing filters back to back on the front, and you actually turn it, and they both cut out the different light. But there's a point where it actually causes some funny things in your image.
Like this cross-hatching sort of effect.
Which is basically two polarizing filters on top of each other.
And that's probably that what you're seeing is like where the point where the lines that are cutting the filters out are coming across and creating that hatching of sort of effect. Yeah,
so, it's weird.
Cool, man. Polarizers are great. Go and grab one, and let's get into the create bit, buddy.
Okay, awesome. All right, buddy, teach us something.
Yeah, okay, guys. So say you go out and you shoot with a polarizer and you bring your images back and your sky is just all whacked out. There's this big blue blob. I call it the blue blob of death.
Yeah, it is.
Insert that music there, Russell. Russell's our video editor, by the way, guys, if you haven't
figured that out
already. So anyway, so I'm going to do this both in Lightroom and Photoshop. And this is an image I took, years ago. And you can see I've obviously had a polarizer on there. And it looks absolutely terrible. You can see what's happened. It's got this big blue, weird gradient looking thing. Yeah. And basically why I've got that big blue blob is because the sun, you can see, is just off to the left of this image. Yeah. And it's nowhere near 90 degrees. Or you can get away with 182.
Hey, buddy. What's that funny looking structure at the end there?
Oh, that happens to be the Opera House. Not Oprah's house. It's the Opera House.
Yeah. Well, Oprah can probably afford it.
She probably could. Yeah. Probably afford two of them. Yeah. Anyway, so it's not a great image, guys, but that's okay. It's a cool location, and you can see it's crowded as hell that day I was there. So Sunday afternoon drinks at the Opera Bar, man. Very popular location. Yep. All right, so let's get into it, guys. I'm in Lightroom here. I am in the develop module. I've just done some basic editing on this image. I'm going to jump over here. Let me close this because I'm going to jump over here to the radial filter. And basically, what we want to do is we want to create a radial filter over top of the blue blob. And we just want to make sure that it's roughly similar to the shape of the blue blob. And we can change this after we add the effect, okay? So one thing I do want to do, I want to make sure it's inverted, and I'll make sure it's feathered. And we might play with this feather again in a minute. And all we want to do, guys, is we want to turn up the exposure, okay? So just turn up the exposure.
Oh, lovely.
And look at that. It's almost gone.
It's gone.
And now what you would do is you just move this around, and you can change the feather by moving this in and out here as well, you know, sort of just till it just affecting that area want to take away. So if I close that there, and I'll give you a bit of a before and after. That's before. Actually, that's right before. Let me jump in the history panel. I just want to show you the before and after the radial filter. So if we go before the radial filter and after what have I done there? Here, let's go back a bit. Add radial filter and up to date. So there you can see there's the before and after that little radial filter there. And you can see it's quite an easy fix. Now, there's a couple other things you may want to do there. Sometimes you get a weird gradient down from the corner, and sometimes the gradient tool is better to do this, okay? It all depends on how your blue blob of death looks and what you need to do. And other times, even after you've added maybe a graduated radial filter, you may want to go and touch it up with a brush. So it's a bit of hit and miss with this sort of technique, but that's the rough sort of thing. You want to get the blue blob and you want to lighten it up, basically. And now I could go ahead and add my gradient filter and darken the sky down and balance that whole sky back out. So there you go. That's how I do it in Lightroom. Now I want to jump over to Photoshop. A little bit different Photoshop. Actually, I think Photoshop's good. I mean, it's a few more steps, and sometimes, you know, Lightroom, I just can't get it right in Lightroom, you know, so I have to take it to Photoshop to fix this blue blob of death. But first thing I'm going to do is Command J, because I'm just going to duplicate the layer, because Photoshop is a destructive editor. I just want to always be able to go back to my original image, buddy. So first thing I'm going to do is grab the marquee tool here, and you see I've already got it selected.
Yeah. Oh, can you zoom in a bit on that image?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, just so it's a little bit bigger.
Yeah, I can do that.
Cool.
So I want to give myself a bit of space around the blue blob of death, okay? So I'm just going to do a rough selection out around here.
That's where the blue blob's bleeding.
Yeah, the blue blob of bleeding. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so I've made a rough selection there. I'm going to refine edge. And you may need to do this a couple of times, guys, okay? So I've hit, let me go back, actually. Let me cancel that. So up the top here, I've got the refine edge button after I've made my selection. So I'm going to hit refine edge. And what I want to do, I want to feather this out to the wazoo. I don't know how far that is, but it's a long way. Okay, yeah. So I want to make it nice and feathered, guys. Okay, so maybe I'm just watching that corner up there. Okay, so let's see how we go here. You know, sometimes with the selection and the feathering, you may need to go back and do it again. It just depends, you know. So I'm just taking a bit of a guess. This is what I need for this one. Okay, so I'm going to hit OK. The next thing I want to do, I want to add a curves adjustment layer. So I'm going to go down to the bottom here, hit this, and I'm going to go curves. And basically, all I want to do, and you can see, because I've had that selected, look at the mask down here in my layers. It's actually made a selection of that area there. So I'm just going to bring I'm going to lighten it up with this side of the curves, and let's just see what happens here. Let's see if I put enough feather on that.
Oh, lovely.
So there you go. It's not too bad. So you can see I probably could have feathered that a bit more because I'm getting some banding around in here. You see where it's lightening probably too much. Yeah. And it is a bit of hit and miss with this, okay? There's no like exact rule of thumb, but that's the basic way I would fix the blue bob of death in Photoshop. And you can see if I was had a bit more time, I would actually delete that curved layer and make another selection. Probably feather it a bit more, guys. That's what it needs. It needs more feathering. So it is a bit hit and miss in Photoshop. You just need to play with it till you get it right.
So basically, what you're doing there is you highlighting the dark areas with that with the curves layer, right?
Highlighting the dark, so I'm lightening the darker areas.
Lightening the shadows.
Yeah, that's basically it. I'm lightening up with the curves layer. That's it. So you can see there's before and after. It's not too bad. I could do a better job with that one. I would make another selection, but so that's basically the two ways of fixing the blue bob of death. Of course, the first way is not to get it in the first place. So just be very careful when you put your polarizer on. Yes, it's a useful filter, but when you've got blue sky and you got that sun direction you got the sun in the wrong place to the direction you're shooting, it's going to create that blue blob.
And going with a really wide angle lens. And turning the polarizing filter to the max. That's where you get it.
Yeah,
totally.
Cool. Awesome, man. So that's the two ways I'd get rid of it in post. And, man, it's been another epic show, brother, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, well, thanks for that, Johnny. No worries. I've learned something, getting rid of the blue blob of death over there.
And how useful the polarizers, mate. We recommend you go grab one, get it in your kit. And don't forget the experiences you can have when you're out there with your photography, because it's not always about the photography. No. It's often about the people you're out there with and the memories you create. Man, that is one of the most
And the adventure of actually getting to the spot and photographing it. I'll never forget Nugget Point in New Zealand. And guys, if you've never been there, it's got to be on your bucket list. It's one of the places. It's right at the bottom of the South Island of New Zealand, and it's epic.
Yeah, absolutely epic, man. Yeah. Such memorable. So how is that, man? The blue blob of death. Pretty funny. Anyway, that's what I call it. I don't know what the proper name is. It's just when polarization has gone bad. So I hope that show really helped you. I hope that answered everyone's questions out there who's been asking about what filters to get. Now, we'll talk about other filters on future shows coming up really soon. But for now, I wanted to mention to you guys something really exciting that's happening over at 3 Colors. And it's something I call Team 3 Colors. And T3 Colors is going to be the one place, the only place you need that to learn to master your landscape and nature photography. And it's about to open the doors again very, very soon. So stick around. If you head over to 3colors.co/team, and you can jump on the waiting list there. And as soon as the doors open to this amazing community, I'm going to let you know. And I know you're going to love it too, like many other people have already. All right, this has been another awesome show. I hope you enjoyed it. Big props to Brent and the Share, Inspire, Create show. If you haven't checked that out with me and Brent, head over there. I think we're 60 or 70 episodes, something crazy. So yeah, that show's been pumping along for a while. Oh, by the way, if you want to check out the new hats and the new shirts, the 3 Colors shirts and hats, if you head over to 3 Colors and there's a tab called merchandise, jump in there. And man, we've got some cool 3 Colors gear for you. All right, I might put a little coupon code under this as well and give you 10% off or something. So if you're interested, grab the coupon code, paste it in, and yeah, it's been another awesome show. All right, I'll see you guys next time. This is Johnny for 3 Colors, and I'm out. Peace.